Okay, scroll down on historymatrix.com till you see the live prototype of HistoryMatrix link. Click that. That will launch the application, log you in as a guest. I'll briefly explain the stage on which you can explore space and time. The map here is pretty intuitive. You can just grab it and drag around. Your scroll bar will zoom in and out. You can zoom in pretty far. Also, you've got topographic and political maps over on the left if you'd like to change the view. And so that's how you get around on the map. And this will be the primary viewing area where the historical content will be displayed. To move through time, we've got our scroll bar, our chronological scroll bar at the top. So you can just grab that and drag. Also, you can compress or expand the scope of time that you're viewing on the map just by grabbing the edges and dragging that. And you can also zoom in and out on the timeline itself. So you can see we're at a pretty high level of history here. So you can click in to zoom into a more granular scope of history. Something else to note is that as you are scrolling this time bar, the content on the screen is going to change in real time. And so you can grab a scope of history, you can move through it to watch events transpire over time. You can pick a narrow event and run through them, or you can leave one end stationary and watch events accumulate as you expand the time bar. We'll show examples of all of that. Zoom in on a more reasonable spot here. Okay, so that is the stage. That's how you get around in HistoryMatrix once you're showing content. So let's bring some content on the screen. You recall from the last video, I spoke about elements. The basic components of HistoryMatrix are elements, very succinct historical objects and relationships which go between elements. And then these two types of simple records combine to form narratives. So the first narrative I'll bring up is the history of the Catholic Church. So we can just start typing here, and if we begin typing, we can type the name of any narrative or any element that is in HistoryMatrix. It will suggest things for us. So I type in Catholic, it suggests history of the Catholic Church. But I could also type in George, and it will show me all the different elements that are named George in the database. So we could click on those to locate them. Let's go back to the Catholic Church. Click that one. Now this particular collection is heavy on people. It's a collection I built that contains primarily the significant individuals in the history of the Catholic Church. Now obviously this narrative could look very different depending on what you're trying to show and who the author is, what their take is. But that's one of the great things about HistoryMatrix is different perspectives can be shown, different weightings can be given in different collections, and it is a very powerful way to look at collections differently and also avoid bias by allowing different collections to be made for the same narrative. So these are the people. You see, you can hover on them to see a picture of them. These pictures are coming from Wikipedia most typically. You can see their birth date, their death date, their name, and a picture of them. You can see their chronological distribution up here. And as you move through, you can see where, as you hover on the dots in the time bar, you can see below that it's showing you geographically where those dots are located. It's kind of an interesting thing. You can grab the time by here, as I said, and as you contract it, those are going to disappear until all we have left is Paul the Apostle. And then you can re-expand to bring them on screen. Additionally, you can move through and watch the people move around, see where that might be some good indication of where the locus of the Catholic Church is at any given time, where the important people are hanging out. So let's bring everybody back. Additionally, you can see I don't have a picture here for Paul, but you can click on their name. When you click on their name, that will query Wikipedia and bring in the first part of their Wikipedia article. bring in the Wikipedia picture. And up here, it will show you any collections that this particular element is a member of. So this can be a fascinating way to explore the different narratives in history that a particular person or event is associated with. By clicking that, it will open up other collections. Another feature is if we click on Paul the Dot here, it's going to expand Paul to show where he went over time. And as you hover, you can see a label up here saying where Paul is. In some cases, it may even give a brief description of what he's doing there, and what the biblical reference is for him being there. And again, now that we're zoomed in on Paul, you can scroll the time bar to watch Paul's travels over time, see where he heads, when he heads there. So if we pick a especially narrow width here, we can drag that and we can see Paul went on his various journeys. Now, here we are, we find ourselves down here in Greece and watching Paul's sojourn in the area. One question we might have is, well, I wonder how close Paul came to any of the sites of the Peloponnesian War. And then this is really the intention behind History Matrix, not only to give an intuitive visual view of history and allow it to be explored visually and geographically, but also to allow the different parts of history to be combined into meaningful narratives, and then allow those narratives to be compared. So if we come up here and type in Peloponnesian War, we can bring that onto the screen. And now we see the various battles that were part of the Peloponnesian War. We click on these to get the various Wikipedia summaries of that particular battle. We can see that the Peloponnesian War is broken down into Spartan victories, and there's also a Athenian victories category. So we can see that this battle is a member of Spartan victories, also a member of the Peloponnesian War. So again, what that means is if we type in Spartan up here, we can see that Spartan victories is a collection that's available. But now we want to say, okay, I wonder where these battles occurred in relation to Paul's journeys. So if we re-expand our time bar to include Paul, which as you probably recall is in red, we can see that there is some times where they overlap, or don't overlap, but get quite close to each other. Here we have Paul, Thessalonica, and Neapolis, and we can see that that's very near the Battle of Spartalos and the Battle of Potidaea. And so it's kind of cool to see where Paul went in relation to some of these battles. Oh, there's the famous Battle of Megara. Zoomed in on that. What that does is takes the time bar to exactly that point in time. You back out here. We can go and grab Paul again. Anyway, there you can see Paul's journeys overlaid with the battles of the Peloponnesian War. And so you can start to see the value of being able to leverage disparate collections that people have brought in, not only explore them down to very detailed views, such as going from the history of the Catholic Church to Paul's travels within that collection, to comparing it with other different collections. Okay, before we end, let me just show you a few other things. First of all, your results are over here on the left, and they can be expanded. So you can come inside the history of the Catholic Church, and if we re-expand our timeline, well, in fact, if we click on the history of the Catholic Church, it will, if we focus on it, it will re-expand our timeline to the history of the Catholic Church. And then we can hover on the various people inside, and so this way we can explore it in yet another way by highlighting the names over here. We can see where they were geographically. A coming featured History Matrix will be one where the sub-collections, the sub-narratives, are hierarchized. And so, for example, right now when we expand the Peloponnesian War, it shows us the elements directly. But something we'll be adding very soon is that when you expand this, it will actually expand down into its sub-narratives, which will then expand down into the elements. And that'll be a very powerful way of leveraging hierarchies to tame the complexity of historical data and allow us to understand the broad narratives and their sub-narratives, and then allow all of those sub-narratives to be compared across different collections. So there's that feature. Let's see. Over here, I won't go into all of this here, but this is how you can contribute to History Matrix. So you can create objects, create collections, create shapes. And with that, let me end by just showing you how shapes work. Shapes are another element in History Matrix that can be part of a collection. And so I've got a collection called the Mongol Expansion. So if you bring that up, and what I'm going to do is, just so we can focus on that, I'm going to take off, well, in fact, we'll take off everything but the history of the Catholic Church, and we'll zoom out on our time bar here. So you can see that the history of the Catholic Church both precedes and goes beyond this collection called the Mongol Expansion. But what's fun about shapes is that they have particular shapes at particular times, and so they have attributes which redefine them as we move through time. So if we'd like to see the expansion of the Mongol Empire, we can do so by dragging our time bar. That's going to start to grow the Mongol Empire. And as we do, we can also see that the history of the Catholic Church is coming online. And so we can see the growth of the Mongol Empire combined with the birth of notable Catholic leaders. So that is a brief tour. Feel free to click on the prototype yourself and explore.